Hello, everybody. This is Christine. I am with Dogs for Life Training and Wellness here in the Chicagoland area. And for those of you who don't know who I am a people trainer for dogs. And I help people to communicate a little bit more effectively with their animals. And I also educate on nutrition and allergies because they both impact dog behaviors and their ability to learn. So those are things that we specialize in. And so I want to just say thank you so much for joining us today. And I am really excited to introduce to you my guest, who is Holly Starr. Hi, Holly.
Hi.
And Holly is an animal communicator. And I met her through Facebook and seen some of the cool things that she was doing. And we reached out and kind of had some little time to chat and thought that this would be a great opportunity to share with other pet parents about animal communication and how they can help dogs that have stress and anxiety issues. So I'm going to have you, Holly, just introduce yourself and we'll get started.
Yeah. Well, I'm Holly Starr. I am an animal communicator, and I also do energy therapy with animals as well. So I work with all animals. Today, Christine and I will specifically be talking about dogs, and again, that stress and anxiety. And I'm based out of Columbus, Ohio, but I work with people all throughout the world via video conference. One good thing about technology these days.
It is, yeah, certainly. So maybe you can share what exactly is animal communication, because people might not really understand what that is.
Yeah, so I like to use the term soul-to-soul connection or a heart-to-heart connection. A lot of animal communicators will describe it as telepathy as well. So basically, what we're doing is going in at that soul-to-soul level, connecting with the animal, and it's really just a conversation. So it's not mind reading at all. The animal will share what they want to share, and they won't share what they don't want to share. It is a full-on conversation with the animals. So a lot of healing can come from this modality, and it's just the animals. Just, I mean, they make me laugh, they make me cry, everything. Animal communication is they use the innate way that our souls communicate to one another. So a lot of people are really surprised to hear that all of us can develop these skills. It's not a special gift that only some people get to experience. If you take the time and you learn how to do it, you can develop that skill and do it with your own pets and do it with wild animals. So
Right.
It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, that's very cool. So how did you get started in doing animal communication?
Yeah. So when I was in high school, I think that's my first time frame in life where I remember actually getting the feelings from animals and hearing what they were feeling and stuff. At that point in time, I really only considered myself like an animal person, or oh, I'm just in tune with how animals feel, I didn't think about it any deeper than that. In 2013, late 20s, I was dealing with anxiety and really confronting my issues with anxiety. And on that journey, I came across energy therapy. and completely fell in love with it. My first course with Healing Touch for Animals, people kept mentioning, the horse said this. I got the message of this from the dog, and I raised my hand and I was like, what are you guys talking about? Like, what do you mean you got a message? And so they told me, animal communication. And I started researching it, reading and doing courses and just practicing. And it all clicked very, very fast. And I haven't ever looked back. So that's what I do now.
That is so cool. That is so cool. And being a person that works with dogs, I can't tell you maybe how many times that you end up like, talking with the dog owner. And, the reality from a dog training perspective, we look at things and we say, well, here's where the behavior is. We don't always have history. We don't always
Right.
have the reason why something is happening. And in some cases, I think it's very valuable to actually understand where the dog is coming from and not always just seeing where they are at. So in a lot of sense, I think it would be very beneficial to incorporate this modality sometimes into dog training. So this is why I'm kind of
Mhm.
really excited about connecting with you, because now I have somebody that I can reach out to and have an owner to, talk to them about their dog and kind of,
Yeah.
try and come up with these treatment plans for dogs. So I think that's really, really cool for what you do, and how that can be so beneficial on multiple levels. And I've used animal communicators primarily to chat with my animals that have passed.
Mhm.
And so, a lot of people want to know, like, are they okay over there?
Yes.
What am I doing over there? Are they still hanging out with me? What's going
Yep.
on? You know what I mean? And so I really have not utilized animal communication more in the now. However, I will say that I have a couple rescues that I might follow up with you and say, let's talk to this guy for a little bit. I'd like to know a little bit more
Yes.
about him. So anyway,
Yes.
moving forward with our topic. So our topic today is about stress and anxiety, because from a dog, again, from my own personal experience in dog training, stress and anxiety is probably one of the main reasons pet owners reach out to a dog trainer, because there's something going on. Their dog is having some form of, anxiety. And primarily, I think one of the most common ones is people will say that their dog is experiencing separation anxiety. And so, have you had experiences of that nature? Working with people
Yes.
that have that type of, yeah, separation anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of sad, anxiety and separation anxiety. It's just so common. It really is. And you brought up COVID earlier, prior to the live, and it really has. It's very common in dogs, and so what I see with that within animal communication, what I do in those types of sessions is asking, what are your specific fears? We know that you're not doing well being alone, but why? What is the root cause of that? And so from there, we can then work through those. Sometimes it's a matter of explaining, well, where is mommy and or daddy going? And what can they do to help you? So then we start to make a kind of a plan of action, so what do you think that they could do to help you? Is there a routine? Are there a lot? I really like to ask animals if smells come up. So what specific smells will help calm you? Because they can give very specific smells. Um, are they needing more exercise? Do they want a special spot in the house? All of those types of things. We go through everything with the dog and make a plan. In those same lines, sometimes they need some energy therapy along with that communication. And a lot of times, right after the session, I do see significant effects from just simply feeling like, oh my gosh, my parents know how I'm feeling. We have a plan, and I'm not so much in this not alone, but their parents know now, you know?
Right. It's like they finally, it's and I can only explain it from like the shoes that I stand in. It's like when I visit pet parents that are struggling with dogs that have separation anxiety, and you put in an action plan together, there's such a relief for them. And
Yes.
in the same sense, what you're saying is once you put the action plan in with the animal themselves, they also have this great sense of relief, and
Mm-hmm.
then you can kind of create. And so you've mentioned a couple of times about energy work. Just briefly kind of give a scenario of what does that mean, and
Yeah.
how is that in interplay with what you do?
Yeah, so there's all sorts of different energy modalities. I specifically am trained in healing touch for animals. So this I can do it in person or I can do it distance. That's across the board. Same with all energy therapies. So let's take separation anxiety for example. A common technique that I might use with a dog that's having separation anxiety is called grounding and focus.
Okay.
So this balances out all of the chakras. We make sure the hara's in line, and it literally it just allows the dog to remember and to get more aligned with, I am centered, I am grounded, all four paws are on the floor. And it just it aligns everything. We're all made up of energy, and when we're
Exactly.
anxious our energy is all over the place.
Shift it. Right. Yeah, that's really interesting. And it's very interesting how it follows the modality that people would use for themselves.
Hmm.
We use different forms of communication. Anybody who's in like yoga or any of
Yes.
those kind of, pulling the grounding, you've got your Native Americans.
Hmm.
There's so many different walks of life that share that. And it's a true factor that, every cell in our body is really about energy and stuff like that and shifting energy.
Yeah.
So it's really cool that you could do these again, working distance.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily a hands-on, which is a little bit different. Again,
Hmm.
when I talk to people, I always kind of try to put my shoes in where they're coming from, but I also kind of like to try and merge it to what is it that I do, and does it, how does it mesh with some of my own clientele as to how could we better their programs, because as I mentioned earlier, I focus on things that are more like, nutrition. They're more
Hmm.
tangible as opposed to the energetics, although there's a lot of the energetics when you're using, essential
Yeah.
oils and homeopathics and,
Yeah.
acupressure and massage, and that's all basically energy. So it's just a different form. And so I
Yes.
think that that's really kind of cool. Um,
Yeah.
and so
And
go ahead.
oh, I'll add too, talking about the nutrition side of things. I mean, most sessions, I would say, animals across the board, they bring up their own nutrition. And it goes
Ah,
beyond just dogs, I want treats, treats, treats. They're like, the session I had earlier today, she talked about wanting more fruits and vegetables, and that she knew more minerals. She needed more of a balance in her diet. So they're very aware of that stuff. A lot of times it's really neat.
I think that's very cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
very neat. And so separation anxiety is, again, one form of anxiety, but there's also a lot of stresses in like environmental things.
Hmm.
So, there's the part of, the dogs being away from their families and stuff like that. But there are a lot of environmental changes that dogs go through. And so, how is it that animal communication can help with those type of dogs?
Yeah, it's getting to that root cause. So with environmental changes, we can obviously look around and say, oh, the wind is going hard today and my dog is acting anxious, so it must be the wind. But why? We oftentimes don't know that why, and how can we help, and how can we help them move forward from that. Um, so with animal communication, again, you get to that root cause. Why is this an issue for you? And is this anxiety from stemming from something else? Why are these fears coming up? I shared Sawyer's picture with you. Do you want to bring him up really fast? So this is Sawyer. This is Sawyer actually right after I do energy therapy and communication with him at the same time. And he loves it. He crashes every single time. So Sawyer is a very anxious boy. And he gets anxious with all sorts of environmental changes, from the weather to landscapers coming, the vacuum going, the cleaners coming in, kids running around, all sorts of stuff. And it was getting to the point where, he was having trouble going out on walks. He wouldn't leave the yard a lot of days, and just stuff like that. So we started with weekly sessions, and really just started with, why is this going on? Why are you so anxious all the time? Tell me how you're feeling. These weekly sessions, I approach it a lot like counseling.
It
um,
kind of is,
yeah,
really. It's
yeah.
kind of like, let's talk about your
It's
problems here.
absolutely
Yeah.
talk therapy. Yep. And if I'm doing it distance and the parent's not right there, I write everything down and give them the list of what was said and stuff. But anyway, so Sawyer, it started coming out that a lot of it stems all the way back to his relationship with his biological mom, his doggy mom, and
Interesting.
feelings of him kind of being pushed away a bit from her, and it not being the relationship that he truly wanted and needed. And so a lot of things in life now could trigger that. So my first goal with him was to work through those issues with his mom, and
His
he
mommy
did.
issues.
Yes, he had mommy issues.
And mommy issues. Can I ask you, by any chance, did it come up of his age that he went to his new home? At
He
any
went,
part in the
yeah.
conversation, did he say that it was like, yeah, did he
He
kind of,
went at a normal age,
oh, okay.
and the weaning was normal and everything. The feelings that I had always gotten was that mom was just a little bit over having the puppies. She wasn't really feeling it as much. And that's okay. Not all of us are big on being
Moms,
moms.
right? Yeah, right. I got mommy issues.
Yeah. So we took that first month or so. I really worked on getting through those issues with him. And then we found, okay, these issues are also stemming into issues with his brother, not a litter mate, but his house
His,
brother.
yeah.
Yeah. So then we worked through those issues, and his brother, oh, he was so supportive. I had conversations with him as well and made sure they were on the same page and everything. And they didn't realize certain things that each other was feeling. They didn't realize it. And so working through that. And then we finally got to all of the environmental stuff. And I taught him, and we did like daily pep talks and taught his moms to do daily pep talks with him. He loved the concept or reminder of all four paws on the ground. We did a lot of grounding and focus exercises with him. And so as he progressed and as he got just more willing to go out of the yard for easier walks and out of the neighborhood and all of that, then I started, then we would do every other week and then every month and every other month, kind of, spacing out. So now he is at every 3 months or so, he's actually getting due right around now. And his anxiety level's starting to go up because it's nicer out. Landscapers are starting to come out. It's been a little bit windy lately. And so now we're in more of the maintenance phase. So when I see his anxiety starting to come up, then I do a session, make sure all of his energy is balanced out, and we work through anything specific that's triggering those anxieties.
That's a really neat story about Sawyer. But in environmental changes kind of brings up, for thought, one of the more common things I think that dogs go through, particularly for, dogs that are being adopted through rescues and stuff like that, because a lot of times what ends up happening is, a dog started somewhere and then they ended up at this house, and it might have taken a dog that was whelped, whether it was in a family or on a street, and then it went into, a rescue, and then they may have gone to a foster, and then from the foster to the family and back to a foster, and then back to another death. I mean, there's so many environmental changes that dogs, and it doesn't, rescue is one part, but also it could include, people moving, or somebody moving out of the house, or somebody leaving for school, a teenager, not a teenager, but a young adult going to college, or moving to an apartment, but there are so many different, like you said, landscapers, it's an environmental change. But I think the more common one that probably triggers a lot of the stress and anxiety is primarily due to dogs that are in rescue. Because I think they're the ones that get shifted around a lot. And again, talking from a dog trainer's perspective, when I see these dogs coming in, one of the things that I kind of focus on is, or trying to help people to understand, like, when you get a dog in, they need time to decompress. Don't start taking them out and showing your family and inviting all your friends. Just give them a little time to decompress before you move forward, because that could be a huge difference for a dog that is being shuffled around, or just arriving and landing into a new house, or bringing a puppy home for the first time, leaving his litter mates and his mom, all of those things. So overwhelming the puppy or overwhelming the dog by all this other stuff without some decompression time can become a challenge from a behavioral standpoint. So when you're addressing people from the energetics or from communicating with the dog, what are kind of some of the things that you notice when it comes to the environmental and anxieties that are in, dogs that have come through rescue?
The vast majority of dogs that I work with that have anxiety do come from rescue, from shelter. So we're looking at, do they have abandonment type issues? Do they have, what is their past like? So I will go back to puppyhood with them, see what that looked like, and then just have them explain chronologically, what has your life been like? Because
So,
oftentimes we don't know that yet.
yeah. So what is it that would trigger like abandonment? What would that look like? I mean, so if people were listening to our conversation here and saying, "Yeah, I got a dog from rescue, and I'm not really sure," and I'm sure just like individuals, everybody's different. But what does abandonment look like? I mean, maybe that you've recognized, or maybe you're identifying some
Yeah.
common denominators in these type of dogs.
That's a good question. So I'm putting myself in those conversations, and the overall arcing, so when I'm communicating, I get a lot of emotional sensations. Um, with dogs that have been abandoned, and especially more than once, or from parents who, you know, didn't ever take care of them very well, and now they're dropped at the shelter. It's a feeling of very deep sadness, but also the words that come through over and over again is, why am I not good enough? Am
Yeah.
I unworthy? Uh, like confusion of, I think that I'm good. I just, people aren't showing me that. So the way that they feel inside at their core isn't matching how they are being treated on the outside.
And I imagine what that would look like is dogs that might be maybe a little, it can go either way. Either they're like extremely shy and timid because
Yes.
they're feeling very withdrawn, like almost like
Mm-hmm.
a depressed feeling, like I'm not good enough, and they might hide under things and just be
Yeah.
really, and or they're just freaking angry about it, and
Yeah.
they kind of will be more of a lash out and be like, you know
Mm-hmm.
what, I might not be good enough, but you're not good enough for me, kind of a thing. But I mean, so I
Yes.
imagine it can look differently, but yet be the core to the same issue, but they
Correct.
handle things a little bit different, just like people, I
Yes.
imagine. So, but interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you had uh, a dog that you had worked with.
Yes.
Was it a rescue, or
Yeah.
yeah? Tell us
So
who this is.
yeah, so this is Charlie and Ruby. Um,
Is Charlie
the
up front? That's Ruby
um
up front
Charlie is
in the
on the
back.
left. Ruby is on the right.
There's one that's in
I
the
believe that's
foreground.
correct. They look so similar.
Yeah.
So
The one is in the
I believe Ruby is the one with the pink harness on.
front. Mhm.
Yes, in front. Yeah. So, yes, these two were used as breeder dogs at a bad puppy mill. And they were rescued, and a family adopted them. And this family is wonderful. They absolutely gave them that space, gave them that time to decompress, all of the things. And they just kept having issues. Pottying in the house, not doing like normal dog things, not wanting to go out on walks,
Withdrawn.
withdrawn. Absolutely. They would go into rooms and just hunker down
Hide.
there and stay
Mhm.
away, and um just all of those things. So I started communication and energy therapy with them. Another communicator and energy therapist named Jill Zimmerman worked with them as well, and we worked with them for about a year. um, this is a much deeper issue than a lot of dogs have. But what I was finding was Ruby. So again, they were both used as breeder dogs at a puppy mill. Um, Ruby dealt with really depressed feelings, depression, and was just stuck down in that. She was going through grief over not knowing what happened to her puppies, not being treated correctly, and having her puppies taken away, and then it not being explained to her, are they okay? Where are they? She really, she's such a sweet soul. And what we worked through with her was boosting that self-esteem, boosting that self-love even, and the acceptance of love from others. I also worked with her through that grief of her puppies, explaining to her, you know, obviously I don't know exactly where they are, but that they were, you know, the place that she was at was a bad place, that those puppies were given to families, and those families are probably taking care of her puppies, and that they are probably okay. So she progressed through that depression pretty nicely. However, she was still withdrawing and things like that at times. Her big thing in the end was she still wouldn't go on walks with the family. So one of the things that I bring into my communication and energy therapy is actually also dog training techniques, and all of those techniques as well, because it all works together,
It
you
does.
know. And through the dog training techniques, along with that communication piece of encouraging her, all of it, she is now going on walks, which is awesome. It was one of the very last things the family really wanted to see from her. And she's doing it. And
Love it.
and now Charlie, I think the next picture is actually Ruby. Yes, this
This
is
one
Ruby.
is,
So
I don't, I don't know the dogs, but I think,
uh-huh.
is that Ruby?
This is Ruby, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this is Ruby on one of her first walks. And
Oh,
if you go back, can you go back to
to
the
the two
picture
or
of
the
them
one?
both in the crate?
Both, yes.
Yeah.
Oops.
So, you know, Ruby's here in the front. You can see like her ears are down, her eyes are sad, like her whole body language is just
Language
kind
is
of
very depressed.
withdrawn
Yes.
and kind of back.
Yeah.
And that's before all of our sessions with her. And now go to the one, and this is her, you know, she's
Ears
standing,
are perked
her
up.
ears are perked up, her eyes are
Her
wider,
face is
she's
open. Yeah.
engaging.
Mm-hmm.
It's just wonderful. I love it. And so the next picture is of Charlie, and Charlie is a really interesting case to me too. Charlie, again, used as a breeder dog at a puppy mill. And she, in the beginning, we were dealing with huge anxiety. I mean, racing thoughts that would make it hard for me to communicate with her, because she was just having such a hard time just staying focused and just talking. So we worked our way through that for probably about 6 months or so, started to see this progress, and then all of a sudden i I was overwhelmed by anger from her. She had so much anger coming out of her. And um what we were finding was that as she released these anxiety tendencies, it was making room for the core issue,
Oh,
the
sure.
anger,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
the anger of being
Yes.
used, being
You go through
sexually
that, the different,
abused.
it's like I always say, what was that? I think the movie was Shrek, where he talks about, I'm an onion. He's got layers to go
Yes,
through. So he's got
it is
layers.
peeling back
But
the layers
yes,
of the
you know
onion.
what? People don't think about that, but that's very true. Because even when we're going through dog training and stuff like that, I always tell them, you know, I mean, a lot of people when they call and stuff like that, we're talking about it. I'm like, look, everything has got to be customizable, because the
Yeah,
reality is when you're going through, you don't know what's going to pop up. You don't
Nope.
know how the dog is going to react. It's not just about, you get the people who call you and it's like, I want a dog trainer. I got to teach my dog. And how much is it? And it's just like,
Yeah.
that's not kind of how it works.
Yep.
There's
No, it's
no
not
book
cookie
that
cutter.
you open up and read and it tells you every dog is going to be different, because as you
Mhm.
peel those layers back, once you can get to the core issue, that it's just like, and it
Yes.
could be very different. Sometimes it's very soothing, but sometimes, like in your case, you're getting all that anger thrown at you.
Yes.
This got to be
And
a lot from the
and
human aspect of how you have to deal with that. Because after you close
mhm.
a session, you know, how do you manage those emotions that
Yeah.
these animals are sharing with you?
Right. So I mean, energy therapists in general need to protect themselves. I state my intention before every single session, and I try to protect myself
Put on
from,
your armor.
yes, from taking on stuff
Gotcha.
from them.
Yeah.
I'm not that great at it sometimes.
Yeah.
um but that's what we do. And then at the end of the session, if it's a particularly hard session, I'll sage myself, I'll go take a shower, whatever I need to do
Right.
to ground
Reground and focus.
and recenter. um but yeah, it was really cool though to see her allow that anger to come up and out. She started showing it in her behaviors at the house. And then Jill Zimmerman, the other energy therapist and communicator that we were working with, she talked to her about the sexual abuse that goes on at puppy mills for the breeder dogs. And in that session, she just had a really big release and continued to progress from there, on her healing journey with it. And so, a lot of these times when the issues go deep like that, we just have to be open to what is this animal experiencing, and we have to trust that that is their own unique being in that time, and we got to help them through that.
Do you add layers of other modalities that might assist the process?
Yeah. So I like to use essential oils
Yeah,
as
that's
those
what I
come
was
up.
thinking.
I like to use crystals as
Hmm.
those come up as well. And then I do have some dog training in my background as well. So I will latch onto that knowledge as well. So
Sure.
a lot of times in sessions, I'll find myself, when I'm in communication and energy therapy mode, I'm not really in my brain. I'm in my heart, I'm in my soul. So that I'll kind of like check in with my brain. Okay, what would be the
Right.
dog
Right.
training technique? What would be the essential oil?
Right. Right.
Um, so yeah, I'm sure that I'm missing some of the other modalities that come into play, but
I think that when you have layering effects, a lot of times as you're decompressing and going through their layers and you're adding layers of healing modalities, there's only so many you could do. Like, again, when I'm working with dogs that have the separation anxiety or have, like, thunder, lightning, whatever those,
yeah,
noise sensitivities, and they'll be, I mean, a lot of times the pet owner will say, well, I tried this and I tried that and I tried that. And it's just like, well, sometimes one isn't enough. Sometimes
yes,
you need to do the CBD oil, and then you
hmm,
need to add some GABA. Then you put some L-theanine on it. Then you have to use the melatonin on it. And
yeah,
then you're just layering and layering and layering until you get your
yeah,
end result.
yes,
And so that would be the same. So it's very fascinating how this all kind of comes together. And I just absolutely love talking to you about this, because it just, one, I think, you know, it would be very beneficial for rescues to also be involved with animal communicators when
Oh,
they have
absolutely.
animals coming in. But I find sometimes what it is sometimes you get the pet parent, or some, sometimes you even get some of those rescue people where they're so hypersensitive that there's really, I don't know how to describe other than just saying, it's just like, those are people I got to kind of stay away from. I'm like, because they don't have the ability to be in the now and in the reality. They're so hypersensitive to the dog's emotion. And it's like, look, the dog can move through the emotion if you let them. But
Yes.
if
Yes.
you're going to hold the dog there because your emotions won't allow them to move forward, well, then we got a problem.
Yeah.
And so that becomes a problem. So in that sense, you kind of mentioned also in the beginning, you were kind of mentioning that everybody can tap into this. And
Yes.
so, like other people who have dogs that are coming from rescue, or they're noticing have some stress and anxiety, what are some like ways that they can open a channel? Maybe
Hmm.
they're not gonna, like go through a full class or something like that, or maybe you teach a class. I don't know. Do you?
I do.
Okay. So, well, there you
Yes.
go.
Yes.
So with that being said, what would be like a way like somebody can like sit down and
Yeah.
like open that heart and get into that 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 circle of love.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good way to describe it. A circle of love. um, so when I'm doing a session and I just need to, there's not time and we're not doing like a educational course on how to learn how to be a communicator. This is the way I describe it to clients in a short period of time. So bedtime is usually the time that's best. We don't have our day ahead of us. We're relaxing. Our dogs are relaxing. So laying down with them, sitting down with them, and then really just truly feel and connect with the love that you have for them. It might feel like warmth in your heart. You might envision a light in your heart, and then push that out to your dog's heart and feel that connection happen. And we're going to be looking at each other in the eyes. That's going to help as well. That helps with a soul to soul connection. So you have both of those connections going at the same time, and just kind of relax into that. You don't need to rush things or anything like that. You just let it build. Let yourself feel the love from them and that you're giving to them. And then
Yeah.
what you're going to do is, I like to picture it as like a hose that's coming out of my brain, and I'm just letting everything from the day pour out. It's just spewing out. That way I don't have to analyze it. I'm not thinking about it. It's just coming out. That's going to clear your mind. And then go back to that wonderful love circle that's going on. And then you're just going to listen. Just
Yeah.
listen. Do you feel certain emotions? Do you get a message? It might be words, it might be phrases. Do you feel a physical sensation on your body? You have to allow the message to come through the way that it's going to come through, and then
I think
trust that.
I think a lot of
Biggest thing is
people,
trust.
yeah, I think a lot of people have self-doubt. Like,
Absolutely.
is that the dog telling me that, or is that me just thinking about that, kind of a
Yep.
thing. And so one of the exercises I think that was really beneficial for me when I was learning a little bit of energy work was before I even started communicating, and I'm not certainly an animal communicator from that aspect, but because I do acupressure and massage work with
Hmm.
dogs that are are in a state of usually fear issues. Um, is and or if I'm going to go over like a dog from just kind of check in their energetic space.
Yeah.
um, you can literally go down the dog without putting your hands on
Hmm.
it. Your hand is kind of floating just slightly outside, and you could start feeling like heat
Yeah.
areas, or cold areas. And so I think sometimes if you do that, it begins to connect that I do
Hmm.
feel that that is warm, that
Yes.
is cold. And so I think it helps you to feel a little bit more confident as to when the dog and you are actually having a conversation and you open up that heart that you
Yeah.
know that that is kind of the flow to it. So I
Yeah.
think, sometimes an exercise of just scanning your dog, just, getting to know your dog's energy, like
Hmm.
where, like I'm feeling like a lot of heat in his hip. And so, well, that certainly might be an inflammatory issue because
Yeah.
we know that
Yep.
a bit of heat is going to rise from it. But
Yes.
this is right where be you with, are
Yep.
you feeling that?
Yep.
Or is this bothering
Absolutely.
you? Or,
The
but it can
Yeah.
open up a little communication, just a different,
Yes.
different way. But that was
Yeah.
kind of one of the ways that I experienced getting information from dogs.
Yeah.
Was kind of just like through that it's really not a physical touch, it's an
Mm-mm.
energetic
Yeah,
field that's
and I
around your
like to
body.
be off of the body as well
Mhm,
when I'm feeling energy.
mhm,
And that's absolutely right because it's like your energies are combining,
exactly.
and when you feel the energy, we're so physical. When you feel the energy, again, it allows you to understand, like, okay, yes, I'm not just imagining this. This is
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, because you could feel the heat, the cold, and you can also
Mhm.
feel like a tingling
Yep.
sensation that you might feel in the
Yep.
palm of your hand or something where you
I
feel
sometimes
this
get itchy stuff
this
as well.
yeah,
Yeah, like a overwhelming tingling
right.
sensation. Yeah.
Yes. So it was such a pleasure to talk with you. I'm so glad
Yes.
you joined today. I learned a lot. And so,
I'm glad.
and I always love that part of when I get to talk with
Yeah.
people is to kind of learn about what they do. And it always gives me ideas as to how I might be able to address certain situations and or direct
Mhm.
families because, sometimes the reality is, I think a conversation needs to be taken place.
Yeah.
Um, and so, sometimes, yeah, I think that that's an important because, like I said in the very beginning, you know, I work with the here and now. I don't always
Mm.
have the historical part. Neither does the people who have the dog have the historical part. We just know that the dog was, I don't know, in the rescue at the shelter.
Right.
We don't know. They
Yeah.
were dropped
And
off.
now
We don't know
he or
why.
she is behaving like
Right,
this.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so, there's always that. And so, um, that's not information that we get to work with. And so it's good
Mhm.
to know that, you could, that a communicator might be able to open up that perspective a little bit for people.
Yes. Yeah.
So again, thank you so much for joining everybody.
Yeah.
You can reach out to Holly. I'm just trying to give you a second here. I'm not really good. So right here, Holly is at hollyjoystar.com, which is where you can find her website and or follow her on Facebook at holly.star.animal.communicator. And follow you there for information and kind of learning a little bit more. And again, my name is Christine. I'm with Dogs for Life, Whole Dog Training and Wellness. And we're signing off. And again, thank you everybody for joining us. And Holly will be talking to you soon.
Yes. Thank you.
You betcha.